Next, I will invite on the stage once again Steve Bradbury, who will be presenting his second talk for today, called Big Data to the Rescue: A Fraud Case Study.
We're here at this event talking about big data. I think, as I said earlier, those who are here, I'm not a fan of the big in front of big data because I think all data is big data. So I'll go over this. Some of you who were here this morning. I'm a fraud geek, been around data for 25 years, been a fraud guy since 1992. Plenty of achievements along the line. Been in Amex, HSBC, Thomas Cook, to name but a few. Few nice achievements. My main goal in life is stopping bad people doing bad things. Hence, we'll go on to the fraud case study. So, 30 minutes on big data. I can't squeeze it in. This is the 2016 big data landscape map. The new one's just come out, and it's even more rammed and crowded. I look at it now. If I look back and think, would I have known this, this lot 10 years ago? I know a huge chunk of it. I'm sure some of you guys know pretty much all of it. I'll put in my caveat. I'm not a salesman. You never get a hard sell from me. But I do like drinks, so anyone wants that later. Anyway, in 1999, there was a huge spike in counterfeit card volumes. This was affecting Amex, but also every other bank. But I worked for Amex, so I didn't give a stuff about the rest. We're also seeing a lot of good quality counterfeit credit cards being returned to us. So the theory being, you go into a shop with a nookie credit card. If there's flags on it, they'll retain it, ship it back to us. You used to get 50 quid each for it as well. So they were coming from multiple industries. Back then there was no chip and pin, so it was all magstripe. And both tracks that would come off the original card were on these counterfeit cards. Most of them were really great quality. Some of them were awful. Some of the ones we got back from petrol stations weren't even Amex cards. They were just loyalty cards or whatever you like. But the key part being the magstripe data was full and accurate. So standard thing when you've got a fraud case, especially in the old magstripe days, is find out what your common point of compromise is. Back in those days, it was usually garages, pubs, restaurants, because they typically pulled in lower paid workers where the bad fraudsters would go in and say, look, every card you skim, I'll give you 50 quid. So they could suddenly go from earning whatever to a few tens of thousands more every year. So after some detailed investigation, we found out that a high portion of the cards had been to Heathrow Express, but not necessarily within the same date range window. So it looked like that was a potential point of compromise, but we had nothing concrete to nail it down on. Standard with an ATM fraud, there'll be an ATM skimmer put on the ATM. It'll be there for a day. So most of your cards that go to fraud would have all been at that ATM, in that narrow day period. This wasn't the case. So once we had some suspicion around a few different points of compromise, Heathrow Express being one, the police then got involved because the losses that were already being seen by the industry was in the millions. Heathrow connection was strong enough to be investigated by the police. Who noticed my typo? It was counting earlier. It's just typing random letters. So just to get to that stage took me a year, which in fraud terms is a hell of a long time. Standard point of compromise, you'll find it in 10 minutes. So yeah, wasn't fun. So in 2002, police got involved, which led to a criminal investigation into Heathrow Express. This is where it got clever. So Heathrow Express, they all have their little handheld terminals. And the olden days, what they'd do is at the end of the night, all those handheld terminals would be connected up to a server, and then all of that data would be fired out to the various banks and financial institutions for payment, which in the old days you'd always see your transaction date of one day and your processing date of the following day. Doesn't happen quite so much anymore. So they employed a company called Checkline to do this processing for them. The IT guy in Checkline, who was very, very clever, what he'd do was, at the end of the day, he'd transmit those data files, no problem. Your card gets charged, everyone's happy. If there was any break during that transmission, the whole file would crash and would be put to one side, hence called a crash file. He stole those. So all of those customer accounts, the customer's not seeing initially anything out of the ordinary. We can't see it because the transaction wasn't actually processed. Because it's got to Heathrow Express, where you've signed or whatever, and it's never actually got to the financial institution. That's why we couldn't identify it as a POC. So quite clever. Didn't steal any live data where a transaction had happened. Slightly annoying. So From that, we reached out to Checkline and said, look, we need all of these crash files. What period? So we got it over 2 years. Bless them, they sent me every transaction over a 2-year period for every issuer with the full magstripe details. So I then had any customer that had ever been there, name, address, everything that's on their magstripe, sitting there in a box of floppy disks. So then we had to go back to them and say, you've got another data breach because you've just sent me all of your data. Genius. So what the fraudsters would do, once they've got those card numbers, they'd go off and, a standard for a fraudster is they'll spend it on consumables, stuff they can easily sell on. So back then it was mainly, cigarettes and phone cards. Now it's, phones, but yeah, it stays pretty much the same. We could actually track them going around the M25. So they'd start off, north of the M25, go all the way around one side, stopping at every single petrol station and buying cigarettes and phone cards, going off to Belgium, more cigarettes, cheap beer, wine and so forth, and then coming back and going around the other way, on the other side of the M25. And they're doing this, with multiple cards, and they've given these out to multiple people, so you can see, all this M20 traffic just spiking. So, what we had to do from that, or what I had to do, once the police are involved, we want to obviously get these guys convicted. To do that, you have to have fully auditable evidence of the entire compromise, spend, where, what, whys, and the rest of it. There was only one card issuer that presented this in court. That was done by me. One bank, I won't mention any names, actually presented an evidence case file, handwritten, A4 pieces of paper. Of course, you can't use it in court. How can you audit that back to source and how you actually process the whole investigation? What we did was, we got them. So at the time, that is the largest conviction of any fraudster in the UK. To date, because banks don't want to tell us how much they lost, it's still believed to be the largest card fraud case. Sunil Matani, who was the Checkline guy, got sentenced to 8 years. The other two got sentenced to 4. All right, the fact is they're both out now. Hardly any of the money was recovered, so they're both rich. At the time, American Express was suggested to be around 20% of the purse. So 20% of you would have an Amex card. Their loss was 2.21 million. So you can have a guess, how much it really was and what was the rest. Obviously, it was always harder. The authorization system on Amex was always stronger than the rest of the banks at that time. So, it's going to be at least 20 mil. I think I'd do 4 years in prison for 20 mil. So, Matani obtained information on nearly 9,000 cards. Only 10% of those in Amex were cloned. The cards that were found with the rest is a lot higher than that. So, again, I'll go back to my at least 20 million. So, this is part of the news article. So, as I say, he was sentenced to 9 years, but appeal went down to 8. His partners, both from Enfield, got 4 years each. And I say those figures are wildly unreported. Some of you guys came to see me at lunchtime. I'm showing you some of the other things that our fraudsters are up to now, particularly ATM attacks and skims, phishing attacks, how much of your data is available on the dark web. So, feel free to stop me and talk. So, how we do it now? I say, back in those days, I got a cardboard box full of 3.5-inch floppy disks. Of course, with everyone's data on it, bless them. So, now with the suite of powerful tools we've got, that investigation wouldn't take me a year. I'd have a single platform I could pull all that data into, not, Excel and using some SQL Server on top of it. Nowadays, many things we'd do. Our own platform could handle it quite nicely and do it well. Or, hey, I'm in a room full of techies, right? So many different things you could do. You could fire it into Hadoop. If you're just doing this on a standalone, Oracle, believe it or not, give away something for free. Unheard of, I know. But the Oracle's data visualization desktop, it's a great little BI tool. And you just, sign up to their spam mail, and you can download it free of charge. It's quite a cool BI tool. It's got predictive built in, so there's some nice charts and graphs. And again, I say I'm not a salesman. I'm telling you where you can get something for free. Only thing Oracle give away for free, ever. And of course, SQL Server and the likes. And we could do some pretty cool stuff in R. The R was amongst us. I'm going to give you back loads of time because I talk so fast. So, my tips for thinking outside the box on any project. It's always about 360-degree feedback. I said this morning, know your data, know your customer, know what your business goals are. Use the best tool for the job. I've previously worked at an Oracle house where we were tied to Oracle. They weren't always the best tool for the job, but I was only allowed to use Oracle products. Giant pain in the... Sorry, the mic went off then. And I'll say again, for me, the phrase big data is overused. I go back 20 years to American Express days. At that time, their daily transaction authorizations file was 5 terabytes. We didn't call it big data. You think how big it is now. So, that's why I don't like the big data thing. And simple tips against fraud. Protect yourself. When you go to an ATM, if it doesn't look right, don't use it. Standard thing. If it's got your card slot, if you can wiggle it or pull it off, probably don't use that either. You can buy the latest gadgets that go over ATMs. Buy them from me for about £3.50. It's a standard thing now. ATM attacks are becoming more and more rife because a lot of other technology is getting smarter, and you guys are now being a lot more secure in your own data. Santander launched their new ATM that has a darkened screen over the keypad. Sure some of you guys have seen that. Let's guess where the fraudsters put the camera. Under the darkened screen. Genius. So yeah, they got that one a bit wrong. Number spoofing's out there. Hey, any of you guys can do that online. There's a couple of sites that will let you test spoof. Again, if you put a number in your bank's phone number in your phone, I can easily spoof that and it looks like I'm calling from NatWest. We've all seen the adverts. Can you give me the first and third digit of your PIN? So I didn't get that, the second and fourth. They've made that advert because people do it. It's crazy. If you don't think it's right, hang up. Wait 10 to 15 seconds so your signal will be released, and then phone up your the genuine number you know to be your bank. Standard for me. If it looks too good to be true, pretty much usually is. Apart from when I say you can get that product for free, that really is free. And the dark web isn't that scary if you're careful, but be very careful. Spoke to a few of you guys about it at lunch, and everyone's spouting around about Tor and DuckDuckGo and various other things. One of the big things that fraudsters do is they love to get one up on other fraudsters. So if I'm selling dodgy credit cards on the dark web, again you can see me for some slides on that. If one of my rivals is doing it too, I'm going to try and take his site down because then you're all driven to mine. And getting one up on another fraudster, it's not the old band of brothers thing, it's we're all nasty people. They will try and get one up on each other. So even looking on the dark web, looking for some of the things that fraudsters would buy, it says, oh, click on here for the picture. Standard, right? Yeah, it tries pinging out to your PC. Then you're in trouble. So, please, let's stay in touch. I know I've seen a lot of you guys at lunch, came to our booth. A few things we can talk about. Obviously, I'm massively passionate about fraud. I'm an old fraud guy now, but I've stayed in the industry for this long. We're never going to beat them. It's being as close behind them as you can. If it's built by man, it can be forced by man. So a few things to come and talk to us about. Obviously, our data platform, fraud, AML KYC, and there's a whole list of social to find us on. So I'm going to give you guys a bit of time back if you're in a coffee mood, but I'll welcome some questions. Where do I get a card from? Not going to tell you. Go.
What kind of data, because you also this morning you spoke about the dark web, but I'm not sure I understand the connection. What kind of data you can get from the dark web? Because we all associate the idea of the dark web with illegal stuff and scary things, no?
A lot of the dark web is full of illegal stuff and scary things. The reason the dark web is interesting for me, again, pop behind the scene. I've just got 2 slides I'll show you. So this morning I went on the dark web and I can get you an Amex Centurion card, which is obviously one of the big ones. That sort of card you get when you don't really care what's in your bank balance because it's loads. I can get you one of those card numbers active with available credit on it for about $60. I can also get you. It cost you 4 bitcoins. I can get you a login to various UK accounts with a guaranteed balance of between 80 and 100,000 pounds. I get you one of those for like 5-6 grand. So the dark web is interesting for me because obviously I work with a lot of financial institutions, so I'm showing them, look, guys, these are on there for sale now. It's full of bad things. Yeah, you can buy just about anything on the dark web. Some of it, not pleasant, all the way down to human trafficking. The whole blog side of it is huge. A couple of ones I've copied down, teaching people who are novices in credit card fraud how to be great credit card fraudsters. So yeah, I mean it depends what you go and look for. You can, as you say, you can go on there and buy just about anything. A lot of it is just full of rubbish, same as the normal web. But yeah, that's what I use it for, is following the naughty people doing naughty stuff. Any more for any more? Cool. Thank you for your time. Please do pop by and see me.